Welcome to this edition of Down the Road. We're going to get a chance to visit with a lot of people today. Marcus Hayes is going to join us in a little bit. He writes for the Philadelphia Inquirer, and of course, the big issue there is Carson Wentz, NDSU's very own. He's no longer the starter, and he says, you know what, if I can't start, I want to pull the pin. I want to be out of Philly, and so we'll get Marcus's take on all that. But obviously, the big news is the stimulus bill has finally made its way through, and the details are all out there. People waited and waited and waited to see if Congress could actually do its job. Lori Konish is joining us right now. She's a personal finance reporter with CNBC. Lori, good to have you on with us.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you today.
When you look at the details, what do you see in there that jumps out of you? What do you see that you want to share with our audience?
Well, I think one of the key things is the enhanced federal unemployment benefits at $300 per week that will be through March, as well as the $600 stimulus checks. I think people have been eager to, hear that more money is coming in that way, and we finally have a payment, albeit reduced from the $1,200 checks that were sent out in the spring.
So you mentioned $300, unemployment check per week. It was $600, and there was a lot of debate whether or not the $600 gave people enough incentive to go back to work. Is that the reason we dropped it down $300?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think there's, on some sides still some concern that could be $300 per week. The conversation around lawmakers is really how to best target this, how to, address the needs of people who need help, but also get our economy back and working again.
So you talk about $600, for per family member. That's not a bad figure, but it only goes certain income down, the way I understand it. Share that with me. How does that break down this time?
So this time, the thresholds are similar to the CARES Act. So it's up to $75,000 for an individual will get a full payment, as well as $150,000 per married couple who file jointly. But they will phase out for income above that level. And this time, those thresholds are a bit lower just because it phases out at the same rate as the CARES Act payments. But because it's a lower payment, a lower total amount, it can only spread so far. So it's actually $87,000 for an individual and then $174,000 for a couple. Whereas, with the CARES Act payments, it was $99,000 for an individual and $198,000 for a couple. So fewer people will get reduced payments as a result.
So there was dependence count in this as well, right? I want to make sure I understand that. If you have a couple of kids, for example, they each get $600 a piece for that?
Yes, and that's actually a bit of an increase from the CARES Act, which had $500 per child. The rule is that, it's under 17 who qualifies. So while there had been talk about potentially extending that to adult dependents, that stays at the same age cap this time as well.
So the governor of North Dakota's COVID numbers were brutal. In fact, we got a lot of national attention when it comes to it. North Dakota and South Dakota per capita, we had the highest COVID numbers and highest rate of death. For me personally, who has had COVID, I've lost 5 friends now to COVID, and and also, when you look at where North Dakota's at, we struggled with our medical facilities. We were actually flying people out of state so they could be taken care of. The governor finally put a mask mandate on. He did, and he kept it on now, but he made an announcement that bars can be back up and running with normal hours, and he did that just yesterday, going into the holiday season. How does that compare to other states? And the reason I ask is because I want to see if North Dakota's numbers are going to go up again then, or if the whole plan that the governor put in place, Governor Burgum put in place, it actually worked.
That's interesting. I know where I live, I'm in New York, the bars really have not been open except for outdoor seating since March. So I'm not really sure how many states have actually opened bars yet. It's an interesting thing to look at because it's up to each state to decide. I don't know if it will contribute to a higher elevation in numbers, but I know where I live, they've shut down indoor restaurant seating for a while, just as numbers start to spike and they look to try to mitigate what's happening here. It's something to watch, and I would assume that the leadership in your state will be watching if that needs to be pared back once it reopens.
Well, where I live in Fargo, and I drive 65 miles to work every day, so I only live 8 miles away from Minnesota, and right now in Fargo, all I got to do is cross a bridge to get to Minnesota. And each state has taken a different approach. North Dakota somewhat in the middle, if not more like South Dakota. South Dakota, Katie, bar the door. You know, for most years, I take my Harley down to Sturgis. I didn't this year. And the numbers were down, but Governor Noem just let her fly. We still had Sturgis, and that led to the higher South Dakota numbers. On the Minnesota side, Governor Walz has taken a pretty strict approach. In fact, the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, has actually taken liquor licenses, I shouldn't say away, but he's forced them to close if they broke the law, for a number of months. So much stricter. And I think that drives some of this. You know, the people going across the bridge our way into Fargo that can actually go into a restaurant and go into a bar. And have you seen some of that on an economic side in other places and in other states where states have taken a different approach?
I have, and I think it comes back to this whole idea of how to handle the pandemic, which is unprecedented for these small business owners. Some want to reopen in order to keep their businesses afloat, while others are forced to close. And we're seeing sort of this patchwork of how it's affecting people nationally. I think that's why we see more initiatives in the new stimulus bill to help provide small businesses with loans to help get through this period, because there's just been so much difficulty that they've had to manage through as it's nationally and at the state and local level. People are making decisions as to what should be done, what should be open, and what people can do to keep their businesses going.
So, Lori, in this package that Congress finally passed, there's money for small business in there. There's protection, the way it sounds, for small business in there. Walk people through that.
So we had the Paycheck Protection Program loans that were included in the CARES Act, and now there will be additional funding for those loans this time around. So it's something that small businesses can access to help them get through this time. And sometimes those can be forgivable loans depending on how they're structured.
Okay, so in farm country like this, farmers have thrown in with nutrition and talked about from the field to the table type of a thing, obviously involving SNAP and nutrition elements when it comes to it. And the reason for that, obviously, is because the more the merrier when it comes to trying to get things through the halls of Congress. I think farmers struggle with that. They have different titles and names for SNAP, which aren't really fair. Perfect example. There's a lot of North Dakotans living in nursing homes. We're an older than average state. And if you go into a number of those nursing homes like I do, when I do my radio show, the one thing you're going to find out is close to 70% of those individuals are on SNAP or on Medicaid. And that's the only way they get by. And so when you look at this, when it comes to the nutrition program, how did that fare in all this? Because if they fared well, it's good for ag country.
Yeah, and they are looking at, providing additional SNAP funding in the stimulus bill as well. So they're increasing the maximum SNAP benefit by 15%, which is something that is aimed at helping people who are relying on those benefits right now.
Okay, so I know you can't give every detail for it, but but there is money for farmers in there, is there not?
I believe so.
Okay. I know that that's one of the things that everyone was looking at. Farmers have fared pretty well through the COVID crisis in terms of the federal government backing them up. And then early in the Trump administration, when the tariffs went on, you know, farmers were paid as much as $1.65 per bushel of soybeans for that reduced price. And of course, I think farmers didn't have much to complain about there as well. How did this finally pass? You know, everyone was talking about the politics of it, the fact that Mitch McConnell didn't want it to pass until he knew who was going to be the president. And Nancy Pelosi didn't want it to pass or didn't want to go into conference on it because she didn't want the president to have a win before the election. Which one is right? I mean, one of those two has to be right, or doesn't it?
Well, the interesting thing that we've seen at the issues that were affecting the negotiations running up until the election continued after the election. So while part of it was, you know, a struggle for power in Washington, there were some real issues that they really did have to negotiate and come to an agreement on. It's taken a long time, and a lot of it was focused too on how big the overall tally of the spending would be. And some Republicans feeling that they wanted to spend less this time and have a more targeted bill versus Democrats who, you know, a $2 trillion plan around that they wanted to get through. So it's a matter of size too.
Okay. Lori absolutely loves CNBC. If people want to watch it, if people want to check it out online, where do they go? CNBC.com
and Personal Finance Channel as well, where we are, you know, keeping everyone up to date on how it will affect their money.
Well, bipartisan, and you're tough on both sides, which I think is a great track record for you. After this, we're going to head to Philadelphia. We're going to want to find out what's going on with Carson Wentz. So stick around as we go down the road.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. Every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering is the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Welcome back to Down the Road. Marcus Hayes joins us right now, and Marcus is like getting to be this regular in North Dakota media. Of course, Carson Wentz is our very own, grew up in Bismarck, played at Bismarck Century, went on to be a hero to many of us at NDSU, winning national championships, and then he gets drafted, second overall individual drafted, and heads on out to Philadelphia, and everybody paid attention to it. Now he finds himself on the bench after being a starter for a number of years. So I wanted to talk to Marcus, if I could, with the Philly Inquirer. Marcus, good to have you on Down the Road with us.
Well, thank you for having me, Joel.
So what's going on? What's with Carson's stock in Philadelphia right now? Because it's not looking as good as it has in the past.
Well, Philadelphia can be a very controversial place, but one of the few non-controversial figures in Philadelphia for the last 2 or 3 years has been Carson Wentz. Nick Foles won the MVP in the Super Bowl, but the consensus here in Philadelphia was that Carson was so talented and such a good guy, he was the guy that you should build your team around. I'm not sure that consensus has changed a lot. Athletes slump. Guys have bad years. Especially pitchers and quarterbacks. It's hard to throw something against a competitor perfectly for 20 straight years. Everybody slumps. So I wouldn't say his stock has dived. I would say it's dipped temporarily, and it being Philadelphia and it being 2020, maybe more is being made of it than should be.
Well, he has had a bad season, but it looks to me like the Eagles are beat up. It looks to me like the people that are around him aren't the type of individuals that everybody was hoping to be around him at the start of the season. So how tough of a hand is that to play?
Well, it's funny. Carson came to Philadelphia cast as an athletic quarterback, and I think that has done him a disservice. He's a pretty good athlete, but he's not of the Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray ilk. He's pretty, or even Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. He's a remarkable athlete given his size. I'll give him that. That said, the Eagles started their 13th different combination of offensive linemen in 14 games on this past Sunday, and that's a record. That's never happened in the NFL before. And Carson was there for the first, I want to say, 11 of 12. So it's unfortunate that this is the pass that it's come to, but the reality about Carson Wentz, I believe, what we found out is he can be an elite quarterback as long as he's protected. The best part about the Eagles over the previous 4 seasons is that they either had the top-rated, the third highest-rated, or the fifth highest-rated offensive line in all the NFL. And that's not damning Carson Wentz. If he can be an elite quarterback behind an elite offensive line, that's great. That's wonderful. But I think we've discovered this year he cannot be an elite quarterback behind a poor offensive line, no matter what that looks like.
So does he make bad decisions, though? You hear most of the announcers talk about that because of that size that you talked about, and because of that college theory of athletic ability, that all of a sudden he thinks he can be a running back, that he doesn't make good decisions in regards to, being an NFL quarterback and knowing when to get rid of the ball, always trying to force and make a play where maybe there isn't a play there. I mean, what's Philly's take on that?
Well, it's true. And I've been sort of at the head of that class. My issue with Carson is not that he has regressed, but he just hasn't progressed. He's very much the same guy he was in 2016 when he was arguably a Rookie of the Year candidate, and 2017 when he was the favorite to be the MVP when he got hurt. He does 3 things, and you hope that when quarterbacks progress, they stop doing these things as much. Number one, he has a big arm. He thinks he can put balls anywhere. And honestly, he kind of can. Most of his interceptions don't come because he didn't have enough zip or a guy was covered. A lot of his incompletions do, but he's got a big arm. But that bleeds into he doesn't like to take the second or third option if it's going to be 5 yards versus 15. So that's one issue with his decisions, and it's not always that way, but it's like that too much for it to be sustainable. The other thing is he's so elusive and he's so strong that he'll extend the play past where it should be extended, and that's what's killed him this year on two levels. He's thrown some passes he shouldn't have thrown to a lesser tier of receiver than he's used to having, and he's never had great receivers, but what he's got right now, or what he had when he was starting, wasn't good at all. And the worst part about that, he took 50 sacks this year. I'd say 20 of them were on him.
Yeah.
And not on him because he was holding on to the ball, on him because he just didn't throw it away or go down when he should have, and that caused 3 of the 4 fumbles that he has.
The elite quarterbacks in the NFL, when you watch them, the Rodgers, the Breeze, those people, it's like they have eyes in the back of their head. It is. It's like they just have a feel for the NFL game versus a feel for the college game. The game seems to move slower to them than it does for anyone else. Is that Carson Wentz's problem? Because there's times you're sitting there cheering for Carson to get rid of the ball, and somebody's going to get him from behind, and it just feels like he doesn't feel it.
Well, he's a monster. He's 6'5". He weighs 230 pounds. He's strong, and he has unbelievable balance for someone his size. He believes, and he's often right, that even if he gets hit, if he gets contacted, if he's in someone's grasp, he won't go down. He's strong enough to get the ball off, and he might escape. And he's done that. He's had that success enough, so it's hard for him to allow that to not be true. And again, the issue with his progress or lack of progress is that he hasn't figured out what he can't do. And that's really what all of us have to figure out when we're young, right? What are my limitations? And when do I have to, when can I fish and when can I cut bait? He just doesn't know when to cut bait. And he's so big and strong, he doesn't respect the disintegrating pocket. When a pocket disintegrates, you might have to step forward, sideways, to the right, to the left. You might have to escape backward, which he's really good at. But he just doesn't have – he's never been in a situation, either in the NFL and especially at college. When you're playing 1AA and you're as big as the defensive linemen, some of them, there's not a lot of respect for the pocket because you can shuck off a lot of tackles. Dante Culpepper was like that when he was at Central Florida, bigger than almost everybody on the field. So that was all to say – he doesn't respect the disintegrating pocket the way that other quarterbacks do, and I hope that he can figure that out as he goes forward, because not only is it going to affect his play, it's going to affect his body. He's going to take too many hits.
And how many years he's in the NFL. It really
Exactly.
does, because it'll affect how many years that he gets to play in the NFL. He's made it perfectly clear in the minute that I have left here, Marcus. He's made it perfectly clear that if he isn't starting, he wants out. That can't sit well with that. I mean, Philly fans are passionate about the Eagles. Get that. Been there as a Viking season ticket holder. But the big but there is they're not passionate and loyal to a player. It appears like, once the player starts going downhill or has a tough time of it, it seems to me that they're pretty quick to ditch him. And so is that what's going on with Marcus? Will we see him in an Eagle uniform next year?
I'm actually getting ready to write a column that opines that we will. I mean, number one, he's untradeable and uncuttable because of his contract. And number two, he's still incredibly talented. He just needs a better situation around him, and that's not a sin.
I tell you what, I love reading your work. I just do. You've been great to us up here in the Upper Plains that are huge fans of Carson, and you've been able to let us connect with those Philly fans. So I appreciate it. And the bad part for you, Marcus, is we got your phone number, and we're going to call back again. How's that?
I look forward to it. You guys have been very good to me, and I really enjoy these conversations with some good people.
I just hope he stays healthy. He's a fellow redhead, so I want him to stay. There aren't that many of us.
Gingers unite.
Yeah, exactly. I appreciate you coming on. When we come back, we're going to talk about restaurants. We're going to talk about COVID. We're going to head to Jonathan Holt. He is the co-owner of the Toasted Frog Restaurant and the Urban Stampede Coffee Bar. So stick around. They're going through tough times. Let's see how they're faring right after this as we go down the road.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here were terrific. We enjoy it.
They say when the going gets tough, the tough get going. At OK Tire, we're here to keep you going. From Firestone tires and replacements to retreads and even Firestone tracks, we have you covered. Our certified Firestone experts are ready to get you back up and running, no matter if you're on site or in the field, saving you time and money. OK Tire, we keep the tough going.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Coulter Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
You know, it takes guts. That's what it takes to be a small business owner and an individual that has a dream that says, you know what, I want to hang out that shingle and see if people come to eat and people come to have a cup of coffee and if people just want to have fun. Jonathan Holt is one of those. He is co-owner of the Toasted Frog Restaurants and the Urban Stampede Coffee Bar, and he joins us right now. Jonathan, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Hey, Joel, good to see you again. Thanks for having me on.
I bet you when you started all this, dumb question coming your way, but you never saw this coming, man. I mean, you must have never saw this coming.
You know, you plan for a lot of scenarios in the business world, and pandemic's just not one of them. It's just when you're in business school and you're covering all the different things that could possibly happen, there's not a course in pandemic planning. So it's certainly been quite the learning curve over the past few months.
So what did it take, or what's it going to take? Because everybody's using that light at the end of the tunnel. I have a theory, Jonathan, and my theory is probably going to be wrong, but it's my belief that the drug companies don't want to be the one that doesn't have enough to move it quickly. So I'm hoping that we get people vaccinated quicker than what they're saying. That being said, I've been wrong about a lot of things, Jonathan, but what do you, during this period, before you get back to where you're open and you got the same type of crowds, how are you faring? How is it going?
It's been a rough go. I mean, to be honest, it's been a rough few months, and I think there's been a number of challenges, and I think roller coaster is one word to describe it. You plan in business world and in restaurants, you build processes, and you hone in on those processes and you improve them over time. And that's sort of just been all thrown out the window for the past 9 months because we've just had to adjust with all these different factors. There's different regulations that come in at the state level and then at the city level too. And it's been a challenge. It's been, one thing that we normally look at the financial statements on a monthly basis and assess how things go. And during this time, it's a daily assessment of the financials. Okay, this is what's happened, yesterday. Where are we at today? What can we afford to do and not afford to do? So it's been a challenge. I think the biggest thing is we're just looking forward to a return to some normalcy and just running our businesses as we know. There's not a restaurant model in the world that is built around success at 50% capacity. There's just not. There's not a single type. So we've just had to get really creative in terms of making the numbers work over the past few months.
Well, I've been to the Toasted Frog in Grand Forks, and I got to tell you, I've been through that door where you look in and the host or hostess is looking around and seeing if they have a table for you based upon it being full, not based upon whether or not it's half full. Right. And that's a whole different deal. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
We're hearing that over 100,000 restaurants across the country have closed. And that isn't the number that matters to me, although it does matter. It's the 100,000 plus the number of employees that now find themselves out of a job. How are your employees faring during all this?
I think overall they're faring well. It's been tougher on them than it has the owners because, as you know, in the restaurant industry, it's your income is based on tips. So when we're at reduced capacity, that means fewer tips for people. Curbside, the implementation of curbside and takeout for restaurants certainly helps, but it never replaces fully the in-person dining. It's for us, we've made sure to include our employees in the decision making for the past 9 months. That's been an important part. They're the frontline workers for us. So every model change that we've made, every new process that we've developed, we've really let the employees take the lead in determining what that is. But again, I think they're looking for a return to normalcy. The independent restaurant industry in the United States employs 11 million people, just in independent restaurants. That's not including chain restaurants. That's just independently owned restaurants. There's another 5 million on the distribution chain. So food distributors, truck drivers. So that doesn't include your farmers and ranchers. This is a big industry here that's being significantly impacted. And the other thing, Joel, is 100,000 restaurants closed now. We haven't seen the end of this yet. Even when we return to normal, there's a lot of restaurants that took every dollar they could get their hands on at the time, but those payments now for some of those loans are starting to come due. We're gonna continue to see restaurants close in the next year, in the next 2 years. There's a long road ahead here for restaurants.
I can about imagine. Are people backing you up? Christmas time for me. And I haven't done a lot of this yet, so I'm going to. So I'm trying to not be a hypocrite. But have people stopped by and started getting gift cards? Because to me, that's a way of supporting you, and yet making myself look popular because everybody loves the Toasted Frog. And so, have people started knocking on the door yet and say, Jonathan, I need gift cards?
Yeah, they have. We've seen incredible support in all of the communities that we're in the state of North Dakota. So we're in Grand Forks, we're in Fargo, we're in Bismarck. We've seen the community step up and support us the best that they can. Small Business Saturday was a couple weeks ago. It was unbelievable to see the support that happened on that day. It was better than any Small Business Saturday we've ever experienced in terms of people coming out, buying gift cards. So that helps. there's only so much people can do, so that's the thing is we understand that there's a lot of people that are going through difficult times right now. It's not just the restaurant industry, but we've been very, very fortunate that the community has stepped up and supported us throughout this process.
But there are a number of people like myself where we haven't lost anything. I mean, I'm still getting the same salary I did before. I have nothing to whine about. And so you take my little town, Hankinson, that I live by. There's 3 restaurants in Hankinson. They got together and they said, all right, Monday's your takeout night, Tuesday's yours, Wednesday's yours, and then they rotated so they all didn't get exactly the same night. But people were lined up. I mean, they wanted those restaurants open when everything gets back open. And, and I tipped, you want to tip because you want them there. Are you seeing a lot of drive up? Are you seeing people support, the Toasted Frog that way?
Yeah, we are. The curbside has continued for us, and the takeout, that's been a big part of what we do, and that has continued. Again, it doesn't replace the in-person dining because when someone does curbside, they take food home to go. When they come and eat in the restaurant, they have a few drinks, they might have multiple courses. It's just a smaller ticket, so it certainly helps, but it just doesn't fully replace the in-person dining. But we have continued to see, and I think there's a lot of things that have come out of this, Joel, that I think are permanent changes to the restaurant industry. So even when we do get back to normal, I think you're going to continue to see a lot of curbside, a lot of takeout, because restaurants were forced to get set up to be able to do that. We never did it before. We never did curbside before March, but we had to build the processes to do it. So now we're set up to do it. So I think that's something that will stay even after we get back to normal.
In my world, office structures where they rent office buildings. My wife's working from the basement. She's never going to work from an office again. Yeah. That's my guess. In my personal world, I've done more national media now than I've ever done before because people are used to this. They're used to Zoom, and national media is they're going to make it acceptable because they want that. So I think from the Midwest, it's a gain there. But in terms of the money, us as taxpayers backing you up with grant dollars, with no interest loans, how have we fared with that? How have we done with that?
I think pretty good. I've got restaurant owners, restaurant owner friends in other states. I think North Dakota's done better. And part of that is we've talked about for years, not just with this issue, but I think our access to our legislators and our Congress people, I think we've done pretty well. We've had a couple of grant rounds through the state. Those certainly help.
Jonathan, I want you open when this is all over. Hang in there. Even if
Thanks.
It's by the skin of your teeth, hang in there. We're going to need you, okay?
Thanks, Joel. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for hanging in there. Molly Howell's going to join us when we come back. Molly has got the tough job. She works with the North Dakota Department of Health, and she is the immunization director. That's not an easy job right now. So let's visit with her when we come back as we go down the road.
Howdy, folks. It's a Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin' breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering, it's the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Four Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Four Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Four Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Let's go a couple more miles down the road together. I've got Molly Howell with us now. She is the North Dakota Department of Health's Immunization Director, which means that she's doing things she never planned to do when she took the doggone job. I mean, that's just the truth of it. Molly, good to have you in with us.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, I got to tell you, it changes every day, which obviously is one of the reasons I know you continue to get calls like this one, because people want to know the progress and how it's happening. So let's just get to it. How is it going with the vaccine that's come to North Dakota?
Well, last week we received over 6,000 doses of COVID vaccine, and those doses have been administered. And then this week we started receiving the Moderna vaccine, which is the second COVID vaccine to be authorized in the United States. And so those doses have started to be distributed. Some providers got them yesterday, some today. And so providers have started giving our second COVID vaccine that's available.
So when you knew these vaccines were coming, and we'll get to the priority of who's getting them, but when you knew these vaccines were coming, are we working at the same pace you thought we would be working at, or do you think that we're getting ahead of where we thought we would be at in terms of the number of people that are being vaccinated?
I think providers are administering the vaccines that we are sending them. I do think the estimated number of doses that we were hoping to get each week is less than what we were originally anticipating, especially for the Pfizer vaccine. It's looking like moving forward each week we'll receive about 4,500 doses of the Moderna vaccine and then 4,875 of the Pfizer vaccine. And so that is less than we were hoping for. But I think we are pretty confident in those numbers moving forward into January.
See, it goes against my theory. I thought we'd be ahead, but I remember last time we talked, you told me that that's probably not going to happen. So you're a realist. I'm an optimist when it comes to it. I get that. The pecking order, the individuals that are getting vaccinated, walk me through that. Who are we vaccinating so far?
We are currently in phase 1A, which is healthcare workers and long-term care residents. So the vaccine last week went to our referral hospitals to vaccinate frontline healthcare workers. This week, vaccines are going to 157 different healthcare facilities across the state, including hospitals, clinics, tribes, local public health, to vaccinate other healthcare workers. And then it's anticipated next week the long-term care residents and staff will start being vaccinated.
So, Molly, I realize there's always going to be people that say no. even in the healthcare field. But my assumption, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that most of the people that have an opportunity to get vaccinated in the healthcare field do, because they're there because of science. So let's talk about long-term care. Are a lot of those people saying yes? I mean, what percentage are saying, you bet, give me the shot in the arm?
We actually don't know that information yet. They're just now being offered the vaccine, and a lot of the doses are being given through the Federal Pharmacy Partnership Program, which is a partnership between the federal government and CVS and Thrifty White. And so they're currently scheduling those clinics and getting consent. And so we're hoping to have a better information next week or the week after as to what uptake, what we call uptake, but the number of people that are accepting the vaccine in the long-term care setting.
So is there any empowerment from the long-term care facility to look at individuals and say, look, we need you to be vaccinated. There's a lot of people here that are vulnerable. And so you got to take the shot. Is that something that any administrators or long-term care facilities are doing?
I mean, I think they're doing quite a bit of education with staff and residents about the vaccine. I think residents are going to be pretty accepting of the vaccine. It's been a long year for long-term care residents, and they understand how severe COVID disease is to them. And so I do think they're going to be more accepting of the vaccine. Long-term care staff, I know they're wanting to, no longer have to be tested or wear PPE, so masks, face shields, things like that. And so I think vaccination is the path forward to eventually not having to do a lot of that, or hopefully allow for visitation. And I do think they are understanding of that and will want to be vaccinated.
So after the CDC came out with recommendations over the weekend, North Dakota's COVID-19 Vaccine Ethics Commission suggested a change to the priority list. What change was that? I mean, what was the change, Molly?
Well, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices and CDC over the weekend recommended that Phase 1B be people 75 and older and frontline essential workers. And so our North Dakota COVID Vaccination Ethics Committee met yesterday, and they really feel strongly about prioritizing people 65 and older and those with underlying health conditions before frontline essential workers. And so that is kind of the change that they're proposing. Now, having said that, that still does go to the state health department and our governor's office for review. And so I anticipate having the final list of who's in Phase 1B and C later this week or early next week.
So that decision hasn't been made yet?
Not officially. The North Dakota COVID Vaccination Ethics Committee makes a recommendation, but then it's up to the Department of Health and the state to figure out if that recommendation will work logistically and balance some other things as well.
So I'm not saying this to be self-serving. As someone who has had COVID, that's not the point of this at all. In fact, I'll be happy to go to the end of the line because the science shows that the risk for me is far less than others. But if you fall into a certain age group, you fall into that 65, 70, 75 age group and you've had COVID, do you go to the end of the line, or how does that sit?
The recommendation is that people who previously had COVID can be vaccinated. However, vaccination can be delayed for 90 days. So I think there's some pretty good data to show that for most people, at least within that 90-day time period, you're not going to be reinfected. However, there is a possibility of reinfection after that 90-day time period. And so if people want, or if facilities want to prioritize that way, they can delay vaccination for previously positive individuals for 90 days.
So in terms of, I had Governor Burgum on with me today, and I asked him whether or not he had been vaccinated. And he said that, he's not in that high risk level, age-wise, any of those type of things. But are there individuals that should be? I mean, Governor Burgum is the chief executive of the state of North Dakota, and I respect him immensely. for not using whatever clout or power he has to be vaccinated. But shouldn't there be individuals like him that have to lead the fight against COVID to really get vaccinated ahead of some of the others? And I've got 30 seconds for you to answer that, Molly. I'm sorry.
Oh my, okay. Well, Homeland Security does have a list of who's considered essential workers, but it ends up being about 70% of the workforce in the United States. And so it is a difficult decision. And I guess we feel like if people are able to work from home or socially distance, then they can maybe be a lower priority than people with underlying health conditions who are more likely to be hospitalized or die due to COVID. But yes, I mean, ideally, we wish we would have enough vaccine for everybody who is willing to be vaccinated. We just don't right now.
Molly, I've told you this before, and I mean it. I actually mean it. Trust me on this. Whatever they're paying you, it isn't enough. You deserve to make more. Thanks for going down the road with us, Molly.
All right, thanks.
You bet. When we come back, we're going to have some closing comments for you. The people that have, elected to be vaccinated, the people that, basically serve all of us, we need to talk about that. We need to visit about it. So stick around. We're going to keep going down the road with you.
Howdy, folks. It's a Caneline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin' breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caneline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the game. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here were terrific. We enjoy it.
They say when the going gets tough, the tough get going. At OK Tire, we're here to keep you going. From Firestone tires and replacements to retreads and even Firestone tracks, we have you covered. Our certified Firestone experts are ready to get you back up and running, no matter if you're on site or in the field, saving you time and money. OK Tire, we keep the tough going.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Kohler Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
You know, it is fun going down the road with you. We get a chance to bring you a variety of people that you might not get that opportunity to visit with on a daily basis. I want to talk about three people. I want to talk about Marco Rubio, the senator from Florida. I want to talk about Joni Ernst, United States Senator from Iowa, and I want to talk about Lindsey Graham, United States Senator from South Carolina. Now, what are those three senators and why? What do those three senators have in common? Well, here's one in particular. They pushed the fact that COVID wasn't as serious as what others in the health, other health officials said it was. So they were downplaying it. They were. They were individuals that said it's not that big a deal. Now, okay, yes, all Republican senators, and I'm a Democrat, I get that. But there were a lot of us on the Democratic side that said, no, it's a big deal. For me personally, I've lost 5 people in my life because of COVID. Lost them. They're gone. They're not just individuals who still haven't got their sense of taste and smell back. So it is serious. But let me give you a reason why I mentioned those 3 United States senators. They took the shot. They made sure that United States senators got the shot. They went to the front of the line as though they were more important than anyone else. I can see it if you're a president. I can see it if you're a vice president. I get that. I understand it. That's the chief executive of the United States of America. But to sit there and downplay it, to sit there and make it out to be something that it truly is, and to say it's not, and then to get the shot first, I don't know how they sleep at night. I don't know how they can sit there and look in the mirror and say, but I got the shot. You know what? That's self-serving. They got their salary during this whole period. During this whole time, they got their salary. Their house was warm. Their house had electricity. They weren't worried about going broke and having to file bankruptcy. They said it was no big deal, and yet they were the first ones at the trough. They were the first ones to make sure that they were vaccinated. And ladies and gentlemen, that's wrong. Always good riding with you.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. Every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.